So you want to do a flare.
Now I'm cheesing when you blow past. Yeah, if you take a slice of me,
Out of all of the upside down tricks, this is definitely one of the easier ones. And for a lot of people, it's the first one they do. All you need is a decent quarter pipe and a good set of guts. Anyone can do it. What prerequisites should you have before trying this trick? I'd recommend being able to do 360s in the quarter pipe and being comfortable going super big, getting lots of height out of the coping. It would also be really helpful if on a trampoline you could do backflips, side flips and backflip 180s. If you can do a backflip on a ski jump as well, then that's also going to make this super easy. So you might be wondering what a flare actually is. Super simple. Essentially it's a backflip 180 in the quarter pipe. To make it more simple, I like to break it down into more of a 90, side flip, 90. But I'll explain that in a bit more detail later. How can you do a flare? There's two ways of progressing into learning this trick. The first way, which I'd recommend if you've never gone upside down on skis before, is to start off by doing a hand plant. This doesn't have to be an extremely difficult hand plant, extremely stylish or big one. It's just something to help you get over the fear of going upside down. What I'm going to recommend is pretending my skis here are the wall of the quarter pipe. As you come up it, you're going to let your feet get ahead of you and you're going to drop your arm down, plant it on the wall while your feet come up in the quarter pipe. You can go super slow at first to do this and just ski your skis around your body. And what you want to start doing is letting them come off the pipe while your hand is on the wall. As soon as you've done that and got your feet off of the wall while your hand's still touching it, you're pretty much halfway there and will be mostly over the fear of going upside down. Doesn't matter how well you land that hand plant, that's a different trick, which has different things you need to work out. The second way is just jumping straight in the deep end and going for the flare. How do you set a flare? As I mentioned before, it's like a backflip 180. So if you've done an underflip on the ski jump, or if you know how to do that on a trampoline, that's going to be really helpful because it's essentially the exact same thing. But if you haven't, the way I like to think of it, and this is really helpful, is just a side flip in the quarter pipe. Not a back flip, not a front flip, it's a side flip, because you're popping out of the coping where you should already be at a slight angle, turning to face full sideways, doing a side flip, flipping sideways, almost like a cartwheel in the air, and then finishing that rotation so that you land forwards down the pipe. The whole time you're in the air, you can see everything that's going on. I like to pick one thing to focus on as I do the side flip so that I know which way up I am. You should keep your chest up and make sure you pop. You might not need to come out of the coping depending on how big your quarter pipe is. Make sure you keep your chest up, and as you set it, you're setting it over the top, not looking down and not twisting too much on the takeoff. Let's jump into some examples so you can get a better understanding. For the first example here we have Sandra, who actually is able to do flares, but right here you'll see we've run into some issues and a bit of a stick going on that we're going to have to work through, and I'm going to explain that as well as I can.
Yo!
So yeah, that's definitely not a flare, and if you haven't seen one before, don't worry, you will in a sec. So I mentioned before that it's really important that you bring your chest up and set back the way and sideways. As we watch Sandra coming in here, we can see that her chest is up until this point and she's folding forwards at the hips, setting it forwards and down, almost like a Misty. She's staying on her feet, which is pretty impressive, and kind of doing what we would call a Lincoln loop, which is essentially a side flip where you're not doing any rotation, but it's definitely not going around the right way. If Sandra can manage to keep her chest up and set it back, not putting her chin down, all of the problems here are going to be solved. We have another example. This one is pretty spectacular.
What?
Thought I'd add that in. Sorry Sandra, you've been exposed. This is actually Bailey's first attempt at a flare, but as you'll see, he lands everything first try.
Easy.
Not bad. One thing I'm going to get onto is this. Actually, I'm not going to allow this as a flare. This is a cork 5, and I'll explain why in a second. But first we're going to watch Connor. Connor's had a lot of practice. He's got his flares dialed in. And this is a nice big one that I asked him to send me a video of. Nice. So let's watch this. The quality is not perfect, but that's alright. As you can see, he's coming in. As he takes off, he is fully sideways. Nice T set, arms out to the sides. His chest, he's looking where the camera is, you can see everything the whole way around. And as you look from this point, it's just a side flip, right? So he's doing 90 degrees, side flip, and then the last 90 comes around and he lands. Connor's also going huge. That's nothing new for Connor. He's always going huge. I'll give you one last look at that. And now we'll go back to Bailey's. Can you spot what's happening differently? Bailey's not doing the 90 side flip 90. He's doing a cork 5. So he's fully setting spin on the takeoff. You can see by the time he's upside down, he's already done the full 180 and he's just opening out of it. When he comes to land, he's having to push that left heel out to hold himself forwards because his body wants to keep rotating. Now this is not at all a bad thing. This is absolutely sick and honestly looks a lot better than Flair's, especially if you could get that landing dialed in. But for the sake of having a bag of tricks and just being able to differentiate the two, it would definitely be a good idea for Bailey to go back and make sure that he can get the Flair and the cork 5 differently. It's a good skill to have. And it'll be easy for him to take this to 7, as I'm sure you can tell. Now, how does he change that takeoff? So currently, on his takeoff, he's coming in and he is setting it like this. He's really throwing spin around, looking down. What he really needs to do is set it back and over like this. Almost like he's going to be doing a cartwheel behind himself. That's his point of takeoff and his body is sideways, which is perfect, right? But we can see he instantly takes his head round. Right there, his head comes round and he's following through with that spin faster than he should. So if he could keep his body open, not put his head round, not bring his arms in on that takeoff, keep it more chilled, the rotation will happen slower and it will look a bit more like Connor's, which is, bar not having any grabs, a perfect Flair. Yeah, so we can see Connor is sideways on that takeoff, but then he stays that way. Stays open, head looking that direction until he comes round for the landing. Bailey takes off and his head looks round and he commits into that spin just a bit too much. All in all though, pretty good. Go give the Flair your best shot. Make sure you've got someone there looking over your shoulder and that you've done your prerequisites on a trampoline first and really know where you are in the air when you're doing it. It would be great if you could film yourself on the trampoline and just get someone else that knows what they're doing to check over it. Send them in to me if you don't have anyone else and I'd be happy to give you some pointers. When you do try it in the quarter pipe or half pipe, make sure to send in a video to me. I'd love to see how you're getting along and give you any advice if necessary. For any other tricks you need help with, just DM me your clips and ask any questions and I'd love to give you some free coaching and maybe even include you in a video like this. Cheers.